in the latest installment of our Profiles in Leadership series, it features Tony's interview with Oklahoma Congressman Josh Brecheen. He's a member of the Homeland Security Committee as well as the Budget Committee. But in this preview, Congressman Brecheen talked about why Christians should have a role in the government. He also talked about how he went in his own journey from pathway to be a lawyer to becoming a lawmaker. And it all started with a chance conversation that he had while working on his family's ranch while waiting to get into law school. And here's what the congressman had to share with Tony.
I was in prayer in college, Oklahoma State University, and really trying to figure out those next steps, typical of most freshmen, sophomore, who've got most of those basics knocked out, but you've got to start figuring out what the major is going to be. And the word law would just illuminate off the pages when I read my Bible. And so much so that I just was really convinced that, that I was supposed to be a lawyer. And so I applied at the height of when 9/11 occurred. I had the LSAT score, the GPA, et cetera, to get me into OU. I had a scholarship that was going to transfer, but they put me on a waiting list because it was a historic year for OU. And so then I was put on this waiting list. It never occurred. My family had started a faith-based ranching program. My father trained cutting horses professionally. My mother and father were very active in ministry, and they had started kind of converting the ranch into a ministry for young men who had alcohol, drug addictions. And so I prayerfully felt led to, in this limbo season, stay there until I got a reply basically from what was going to happen on law school. Long story short, I remained doing that for a couple of years. My flesh was screaming, but I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing anything else. And I was, in addition to the cutting horse program, started a heavy equipment business with my father. I was unloading a dozer. A guy jumps on the dozer. I had a member of Congress reach out to me, and I was telling him about this. We just happened to be a Democrat member of Congress, and he said, "Man, there's a guy by the name of Tom Coburn that's going to come to this particular meeting in a few weeks. I want you to come with me." And so I met Tom Coburn running for the United States Senate. Right. And it wasn't long before I was working for Tom Coburn. I helped him get elected along with many others that were part of his staff, and then became full-time staff with him, and really cut my teeth on a good man who was biblically accurate, constitutionally sound. And then a few years later, I found myself making law. So it's amazing what we know in part and in part.
You had a small world, because Tom Coburn, when I came to the Family Research Council 21 years ago, he was on the board. And of course, we also share in common, I grew up in Oklahoma. Of course, the other side of the state, I'm up in the northern part of the state, you're in the southern part of the state. Yeah. Let's go back a little bit to that encounter, your first encounter with the Lord that brought you into a relationship. Tell us about that.
Look, I was young. I grew up in Baptist, Methodist, combo churching. Mother and father, one of each, and it depended on what year we were in, what type of church. But I grew up with good parents who taught me to get in the Bible, picture Bibles. If any parents watching and not doing a good job of getting your kids early in life in a picture Bible, and then nightly Bible studies, man, our culture is losing out because that's a lost practice. But I remember just having an encounter at a young age, and I had my share of sin. But I've walked with the Lord. There was a hunger for the Word that developed early in my life.
So Josh, a lot of people would say, as a Christian, you talk about politics, that's a dirty business. I mean, things are said about you. You have to get involved in issues that, just are not consistent with what they would say would be our faith. How do you respond to that?
Well, our founders, there's a great quote that's used a lot. I think Charlie Kirk has probably made it famous, that John Adams quote that says that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other. I encourage people to go look further. That writing was to the Massachusetts militia by the second president, and he actually starts it off by saying, "We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by religion and morality." And being somebody who grew up in the cutting horse industry, I like any time the word our founders use bridle. But, and then he goes on to say that avarice, which means extreme greed, ambition, and revenge will break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Then he finishes with that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. So, it clicks with me that if you want to maintain liberty, then you have to have self-governance.
Right.
And self-governance is the only way our founders saw true liberty being maintained, a limited government. What we see now is that what was started by limited 18 enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8, the vacuum of government starting to fill, and we're becoming a lawless society because we're not self-governing like we used to.
Well, that was Oklahoma Congressman Josh Brecheen during an exclusive sit-down interview with Tony in our Profiles in Leadership series on the Stand Firm app, which you can have if you don't already have it. Simply go to the App Store or Google Play, download it, or text the word app, APP, to 67742. You'll definitely want to hear the rest of that. Incredible man, Congressman Brecheen, and great, great interview.